Welcome to Reframe Your Mindset for Success. With me today is Yasmin. How are you today?
I'm great, thank you, Paul. Thanks so much for having me on.
Oh, you're welcome. And what have you been up to this week?
Oh, well, do you know what? It was all about getting the kids back to school. So that's kind of pretty much taken up all my time and energy, just getting them ready.
Yeah, no, I can imagine school uniforms and all that stuff that needs doing. Yeah,
Yeah, and I think it's more about the sleep patterns, just trying to get them to get to bed at a decent time so they can wake up
yeah,
at the right time.
that's it, isn't it? But back on school time agenda.
Exactly.
So as you know, Yas, on the basis of the podcast, then we start with your story. So
Mhm.
it's over to you and telling your story in as many words you want to tell it.
Okay, great. So my story started, well, my business story started in 2012. But as you know, I worked in corporate before that. So I was in corporate for 12 years, and I was in training and coaching and leadership development. And I live in rural northwest of Ireland. And so when I was made redundant at the end of 2011, the opportunity for a similar type of a role didn't exist. And so if I wanted to get a similar type of a role, it was going to be about moving to a bigger city. And that really wasn't an option for me or my husband, and our eldest was only a year old at the time. And I'd always had this desire. I'd always, even from a very young age, like as a teenager, I always had this desire of having my own business and having freedom and flexibility.
Yeah.
And I thought this would be a great opportunity to do that. So I started my business and proceeded to spend maybe about 2 years in business wilderness, marketing wilderness, not having a clue how to do anything really.
Yeah.
Um, because when you work in a big business, you kind of feel like, yeah, I've got a feel for what you do. But when it's your own thing, it's a whole different ball game.
Yeah.
And so I got clients. I'm not really sure how I got clients. I mean, for me, I just tend to talk to people, over coffee and, I might talk about what it is that I do. And they go, oh, that's really interesting. Oh, could you help me? And so that's kind of how I got clients. But I got to a point where I realized that that wasn't sustainable. It certainly wasn't scalable. And I actually worked with a coach, and I'm a big believer in coaches and mentors. And I've worked with them for a very long, over 25 plus years now at this stage, for all different areas of life and business.
Yeah.
And I remember working with a particular coach who kind of really got me to distill what it is that I was doing with my clients. And she said to me, "You're really good at getting things done in little pockets of time." And I kind of went, oh, you're right, actually, because I can get results for people really fast.
Yeah.
And that's really where Tiny Time Big Results was born, because my child at the time, he was only like 1, 2, 3, he was so little. And
Yeah.
then my daughter was born, and I only ever had 3 hours a day for the business. And so then it was really about kind of squeezing everything into that. And we created Tiny Time Big Results as a concept. And it was very much about productivity and time management. And that's kind of how it started. But
Yeah.
as time went on, I realized that actually that's just dealing with the symptom of it. If you're really busy and you think, okay, how can I be more productive? What I realized was if you want to have a profitable business and you don't have a lot of time, like me, then the way that you do business has to be different.
Yeah.
And that's really kind of the journey that I then took with Tiny Time Big Results. It was all about, if I want to have a profitable 20-hour week business, it was 15, 20 hours a week, how can I make that happen? And that's really what I've been doing over the last 11 years now at this stage. I wrote my book back in 2018. I've just written another book. And that is very much around how you build massive leverage in your business
Yeah.
so that you're not having to do the heavy lifting all the time. Your message does the lifting for you, your systems do the lifting for you, your offers, create really healthy revenues, but without you feeling like you're burning out and you're working all the hours.
And it's really interesting, isn't it? Because trying to get that balance in life, between as you said, it's tiny time but big results. To balance what is maybe family life and obviously work life as well. That could be difficult at times for people, can't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think I honestly, and it's so funny now when I think about it, because my eldest is nearly 15. My daughter is 12 and my youngest son is nearly 9. And so I've been doing this business at the same time as having babies, raising children. And I often think about my business as the greatest gift that I gave to myself because it meant that I was able to create that balance. Now, I'm not saying I got it right all the time. I'm certainly not saying that at all. I certainly haven't got it sussed, but it certainly gave me that ability to be able to work from home, way before remote working was a thing, and actually be there for my children. Like all my kids went to creche from about 18 months of age before they actually went into preschool. So for 3 hours a day, that's kind of my tiny time. So for 3 hours, but before that, before they were 18 months, they were sat behind me. I'd prop them up with pillows and toys and things. I'd be
Yeah.
breastfeeding on Zoom calls and things. So it was very much I made it work for me.
Yeah, and it's that, I look at it and you go on the basis of that and the way that you explain that, you've kind of in that in itself, you found your niche, haven't you? And that's so important to business, isn't it? Because if you're too generalistic, sometimes people don't understand what it is that you do.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's been a big part of it for me, and certainly in the work that I do with my clients,
Yeah,
is that I believe that we all have this incredible like zone of genius. Like we all have things that come really easy to us. And when you can turn that into your business, it actually makes your life so much easier. Now, I didn't realize that this is what I was doing at the time,
yeah,
but I realized that I was able to really help people to nail down what it is that they were really good at, that they wanted to do more of, and then actually how to turn that idea, that concept, into money in the bank, real hard cash in the bank. And for me, that was been it has been my own journey. Like I always feel like it's such an evolution. Like I didn't start out doing that, but now when I look back and I think that's exactly what it is that I was doing. I was building a business that worked for me. And there's a lot of people who would be in a similar situation, whether it's with kids, whether it's with elderly parents. I actually have, it's interesting. My client base is like you'd think that it's all parents. Actually, majority of them are not even parents, but they have other demands on their time, or they just don't want to have a business that takes up all their time.
yeah. And it's really interesting, just listening to one of the things that you said there, finding something that you really enjoy or you're
Mm.
really good at. There's that playing to your strengths because then you're more likely to be enthused, energized, and excited by what you do. And that energy in itself, it creates, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I call that your business sweet spot. That when I think about, and this is kind of like the kind of initial work that I would do with a client is, what are you really good at? What are you really passionate about? And a lot of people tend to focus in on what they're passionate about, but I really want them to think about what they're really good at because I think that's important because that it comes easy to you,
Yeah.
right? And there's no incongruence then when you're positioning that as an offer, somebody to come and buy your services. You're not sitting there thinking, oh God, I've got imposter syndrome. You're like, no, I'm really good at this, right? And then when you know what you're really good at and you're really passionate about it, the other two key areas that they need to be thinking about is there a market need for it? And will people pay for it? Because they're the two things that's going to really turn it into money in the bank.
So totally, yeah, absolutely. You definitely need people to pay for it. Well, look,
Yeah.
as you know, the podcast is focused on, reframing your mindset for success. So it's all about mindset. So on the
Mm.
basis of you, the career that you've had and where you've got to today in business, being successful in business, when you look at mindset, why has mindset been so important to you?
I think mindset for me has been so important. And I think that at the beginning, I didn't really take too much notice of it. Now, it's funny because I've been in personal development. I've been interested in personal development for a very long time, long before I started my business. So I'd always been interested in it, like back in like the early 2000s. But what I realized was in business, having your own business is like the most brutal personal development that you can do because all the things that really trigger you or trip you up, they come at you. So if you're afraid of rejection, like that is going to be something that you're going to have to really get over because business is all about making offers and people are going to say no, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, it has been so important in realizing that mindset, it's about the beliefs that you hold about life, business, and that those beliefs shape what you do and how you show up. And so if you're in business and you're thinking nobody wants to buy from me, my stuff is rubbish, all of the negative stuff, then that's going to be your reality. And I think that kind of took a little bit of time to click into place for me to realize that actually what I was thinking and believing and feeling was actually creating the results in my life. And so when I changed those, when I shifted those, that's when everything shifted and changed.
Yeah, it's like self-fulfilling prophecy, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you're in that type of mindset, then it creates the same type of results in your life. That's and it's interesting because I look at it and go, when I went into business, I made so many mistakes, and you look at it and you go, I had so many rejections, and you're quite right, it is. It's probably the best self-development you can ever do, based on
It's
experience.
brutal. Yeah.
And I could write a book just on the mistakes I've made, but
You and me both.
so on the basis of continuing the mindset theme,
Mm.
how would you describe your mindset then?
I think the way I would describe my mindset is very much open for growth, open for expansion, because that's where all the development has come from. That's where all the insights, that's where all the quantum leaps, if you like, have come from, is not being closed down to actually thinking, could I do this differently? So I think when you have a mindset, it's a bit, God, I forget her name, Carol Dweck, is it? And she
Yeah,
talks about like a growth mindset or a fixed mindset. I think
yeah,
mine is very much a growth mindset. And for me, actually, it's one of the things, I don't know whether you ever do this, Paul, but like one of the questions I often ask myself if I'm having a bit of a wobble in my business is, if you had millions in your bank account, right, would you do what you do? Right? Because it's always a really good way to anchor yourself into your why, your purpose, etc.
yeah,
And I'm always thinking about all the things that I'm learning and all the things that I get to share with my clients and all the knowledge that I'm gaining. And I'm just thinking, yeah, even if I had millions, I would just carry on doing what I'm doing because I just love that whole process.
yeah.
Of it's like, okay, I'll learn it and then I'm going to go implement it. I'm going to show somebody else. They might be able to get really great results. And that just drives me. So I think for me, it's very much a growth mindset.
Yeah, that's a really powerful question as well to get people to think. It really is.
Yeah.
The way that you've framed that, it's really good. So on the basis of, and I guess that's a technique that you'd use to help frame your mindset. Are there any other techniques or tips that you'd share that help you get your mindset where you want it on a daily basis?
Yeah, I think with mindset, so much of it is self-awareness. Right? If you don't have a level of self-awareness, then you do things very much unconsciously, and then you wonder why things don't change. So I think that level of self-awareness has got to be there. And so it's things like knowing that how you think and believe and behave and all of those things, that it's all just a program,
Yeah,
and that can be overridden. That can, you can rewrite the program. And I think that gives you so much freedom because you think, actually, I don't need to carry on like this. There's research that says that, by the time you're someone 35, they're pretty much just repeating the same day, the same thoughts, the same behaviors, because we've really like built that program in. It's like when the saying about, give me a boy until 7 and, I'll show you the man. And, but this is like very much around once you hit 35, you're like going, oh my God, is this really how I want the rest of my life to be? To be thinking these thoughts, feeling these feelings. And so when you know that, no, that actually doesn't have to be your destiny, then I think that you take back control. So I think if you don't like what you see in your world, in your life, and you're thinking, no, there's that element where you think, well, I can change this. I
yeah,
don't have to accept this. And, knowing that your outer world reflects your inner world gives you so much more agency, because you then know that actually it's a bit like if you look in the mirror, right? And when you look in the mirror
yeah,
and if you're looking at your hair and there's a little tuft of hair that just keeps sticking up, right?
yeah,
You don't touch the mirror and try and push the little hair down, right? You touch your head and push the little hair down in the hope that
yeah,
that will behave, right? So we can't change the reflection, but we can change the subject, i.e., ourselves. So we can change our inner world to actually see the changes that we want in the outer world. And I think that even you can know that intellectually, but
Yeah.
when you really integrate that and when you really embody that, that's when things really start to move at pace.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And it is, isn't it? It's understanding that in some respects we are just running programs in the mind and we can
Yeah.
actually change the program ourselves. Yeah, that's great advice. So on the basis of, you will have learned things over the years. So who's helped you develop your mindset, or what has helped you develop your mindset? Has there been a book, an experience, a person?
Oh gosh. Like I say, I've been doing this for such a long time. There's been so many teachers. And even it's so funny because, as you evolve, the teachers that you might have had 20 years ago no longer resonate because you're a different person.
Yeah,
Then I was thinking about this and I was thinking, God, there were so many people. Like my very first introduction to the whole world of personal development was Tony Robbins, which is probably a lot of people can relate to that.
yeah,
Um, and started that whole journey. But over the years, as I don't really resonate with that world anymore. But there's been other people who've come into my life and they might have just said one thing to me, and that's made a massive difference. And I think for me, what's really stood out for me and kind of the journey that I've been on is that it's not just about the mind, it's not just about what you're thinking,
yeah,
but also very much about what is going on for you in your body. So, so much of what we experience is because of what we're holding in our body and we're not letting it go.
yeah,
So when you think about nervous system regulation, when you think about, if I'll give you an example of like when you're with the kids and if they're doing something and you just like lose the plot with them, and that's coming because you're not regulated, right? And I say this as I've got a teenager, I've got, there's all sorts of wacky things going on, and you realize that you think, oh my God, I'm just reacting, I'm not responding.
yeah,
And I think the same is true in business, that if, say, for example, someone says no to you, right, and you really feel it, like you really feel it, and that just stops you. You're almost like paralyzed, and you feel like you can't take any action. You don't want to put yourself out there because you're so afraid of that rejection.
yeah,
And that's not because you're thinking about it, it's because you've got a very real feeling in your body. And so for me, the way that this has really transformed the work I do with my clients, like with my clients, what I'm helping them to do is to build a high revenue, high leverage business whilst they're working 20 hours a week or less. And in
yeah,
order to get them to that outcome, in order to get them to that result, what I'm looking for is working with them with three specific areas. So it's the strategy, absolutely, because you need a strategy, but
yeah,
it's also about dealing with their subconscious. So thinking about what are they thinking, what are they believing. That's why I became a qualified hypnotherapist a couple of years ago, because I was so fascinated with what's going on, kind of under the hood, if you like.
yeah,
And then the third piece of it is very much the thematic. So the body, like what's going on for you in your body. Like if we use an example of money, if you feel like you're never making the money that you want, at some level, your body doesn't feel safe receiving money. And
yeah,
so if you're not aware of that, you'll just continue to repel the money and not realizing that until you create safety in your body, then that money will always feel elusive. So I think for me, it's been a real journey to understand, like back in the day, it would be like affirmations and positive thinking,
yeah,
but that's just so surface level,
yeah,
and they can work to a certain point, but unless you've dealt with what's going on underneath, the beliefs that you have, the lack of regulation that you might have, then all of the other things will feel so much more harder.
yeah. God, that makes a lot of sense. And it is, isn't it? We can hold and carry, the likes of stress in lots of different ways in the body, can't we? And then that
Yeah.
can impact the way that we feel and the way that we do things. So that totally resonates. So on the basis of, you've obviously had, quite a lengthy career, both in, working in corporates and working for yourself in business. Have you got any funny stories that you could share with the listeners along the way? Any story that would be what you'd see as quite humorous?
Do you know what? I was sitting there thinking, racking my brains and going, oh my God. So I'll give you a little funny story, right? And it's going to be ironic because this is me explaining to you that I don't have any funny stories, or that if there are any funny stories, they're funny in my head and to nobody else. But my sister and I went on a BBC program earlier this year, and that was one of the questions that they asked me was around, like, do you have any funny stories about your sister? And I went, oh my God. And when you think, I've spent 40 plus years with this woman
Yeah.
and I can't think of a single story.
Put on the spot.
When you're just like thinking, but there's been so many moments, but they'd be funny because you had to be there.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so I'm actually going to say, Paul, I cannot think of a single funny story. There's been lots of, I'm sure, funny moments, but my husband probably would be sitting there going, yeah, she's not that funny.
Oh God, yeah, I tell you what, they must have all happened to me because I can raise a list of embarrassing moments, that's for sure.
Well, embarrassing moments are a whole different ball game, Paul.
And I think the last time I possibly was in Carrick on Shannon, when I saw you not too long back. But yeah, I'm the person who got lost in Carrick and Shannon, aren't I? So I've got plenty of stories to share. But so on the basis of providing, the listener with what would be your last piece of advice on the episode, what would it be?
I think for me, what's made the biggest shift for me has been very much understanding that it's about what's going on for you internally. If you don't like what you see on the outside,
Yeah.
and that could be in relationships, that could be in business, that could be in your health, for example, like if you're just thinking, oh no, I'm a bit sluggish, or any of those things, then for me, it's always about, well, what's going on for me internally. And if I think about it from a business perspective, when I have been, maybe I felt contracted in my business, I wasn't feeling expanded. Or if I was like thinking, oh, nobody wants to buy my stuff or whatever, if you were having those moments and you're having wobbles where, can I really do this? And the truth is that all of these thoughts, all of these feelings that we have, that's our frequency. That's what we're broadcasting out into the world. And, whether you believe in law of attraction or, any of those things, I love Abraham Hicks. I've been listening to them for many, many years and I've seen them live. And, I don't know, are you familiar with Abraham Hicks, Paul?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So, I always think like, if that's what I'm putting out, of course I'm getting more of that back, right? Because that's my energy. So if you imagine if I was trying to, tune into a radio station, if I'm tuning the wrong station, I'm not going to get the one that I want. So then for me, I was very much around, okay, so what's going on internally? What am I believing? What am I feeling? So I started saying things and rewiring my own beliefs around, God, business is just so much fun. I really enjoy figuring this stuff out. So you kind of start talking to yourself in a different way. It's
yeah,
like people love my content. People can't wait to come and work with me. And I started to change my energy and my frequency. It's actually something I do with my kids. So when they were talking about going back to school, and my daughter was like, "Oh, I'm not good at math," and I know that story so well. I said that so many years, and I just went, "Why don't you trick your brain into thinking that maths is fun and it's easy?" I said, because the more we tell ourselves that
yeah,
this is hard, the harder it becomes. But if we trick our brain, and our brain's always looking for evidence to like validate what we've just said. So if I'm saying building a business is so much fun and it can be so easy and people just want to pay me, then the brain goes, okay, let's go look for evidence for that.
yeah.
Right. And so I think that that's the piece that I would get people to really take to heart. It's like if you're not happy with what's going on externally, think about what are you thinking and feeling and believing internally, and start shifting that. And you will, without a shadow of a doubt, you will start to see shifts in your external world. Now, they might not be massive, but yeah, if you pay attention to the little shifts, trust me, it'll blow your mind.
Excellent. That's great advice. So it's been brilliant having you on the podcast today, Yasmin. I've really enjoyed it. And thank you very much for
Thank
your
you.
time.
Oh, thanks so much, Paul. Thank you.